Okay, thank you guys for turning up for day 2 of the Keys to Self-Mastery. We've just had a little bit of a chat beforehand while we're waiting for everyone to come on, and these guys are doing awesome. I'm so proud of you guys for the awarenesses that you've had, and I'll just show you now that you're on this journey, it just goes deeper and deeper just how much you find out about yourself. It's, as Marianne said, it's pretty scary what you find out, but you get to a point where it's just more interesting. Again, even the scary is the ego going, oh, it's scary, like it's actually quite fun to find out stuff. And then when you find out things that you thought were bad, or that's not nice or scary or whatever, you have a bit of a joke with it because it's hilarious. Again, nothing's really as serious as it's all cracked up to be. So what we'll do is we'll just do a little bit of a recap of day 1, where we talked about like our thoughts and feelings and how to know when they were happening. So even the awareness, like Marianne, you said, oh, I haven't really been focusing on my thoughts, but you're focusing on feelings, which actually then showed you your thoughts. So that was actually a really good example of how, yes, you can focus on thoughts if the thoughts are the things that are happening and showing up, but if they're the feelings, they're also just showing up as well and happening. So you can use those as well. And the thing is that if you think about it, like in the past, we never really knew what to do with them before. And now we have, again, Marianne, as you said, we've got complete control over them just by noticing them. So it's just awareness, and that's what we call awareness. So, and then, of course, if you're kind of stuck with something, you can do that process where you call it out. So you just call it out as the ego, take 3 deep breaths, and then you'll actually notice it will completely leave you. Again, if we've got some examples, we can play around with that process today, we can do that. But we can have a chat at the end about some of those examples and using that process. So today what we're looking at is circumstances, situations, people, and experiences, because we've talked about noticing our thoughts and our feelings that we know about ourselves, which is the first step. And if I'm burping, it means I'm shifting energy for someone. So there you go. What we're going to do now is look at what happens if we notice something in our external world, because most of the time, and I'm sure you'll probably agree, that when things are happening in our external world, we think we have no control. But similar to what you've just learned with thoughts and feelings, we thought we had no control over those either, but we do. So I'm going to show you how you actually have control over your circumstances, situations, people, and experiences. The main thing that a lot of people say to me is that you can't control others. I beg to differ. And it's not about a control as such, it's about you. And I'll show you how that all works. The other thing that we've just talked about before, which I'll share, is, if you're really loving the work and, when you do love this kind of work or any kind of work and you want to share it with everyone and you notice things about other people, the thing that you can do is just be the example of that. Because the thing is, as I've kind of said before, you can't actually tell people how to live their lives. You can't tell them what to do. And of course, everyone has to come to their own awarenesses. And I've found, especially being a teacher of different levels of work and tools and things like that, you can't really teach from telling someone. You actually just have to be the example. And I endeavor to do that every day. As you probably see on Facebook, I just share my own stories, and that's how I teach, because if someone resonates from those stories, then they'll get something from it and they'll adopt it a lot more than if I told someone, this is how you do it. We all have, again, the ego will be that resistance, the rebel within us. We all have this rebel within us that goes, oh no, I don't like being told what to do or whatever. We all have that, and we have to recognize that that's actually part of being here with an ego. And again, I want to really put home that we have to work with the ego. It's not bad or wrong. It's just part of being human. It's a survival mechanism. So we still need to honor it and listen to it and work with it and things like that. It's just that you don't let it have control by having the awareness. So what I've also found is through circumstances, situations, experiences, and people, they're actually deeply connected. This external world is deeply connected to our internal world. and whatever's going on within us will actually somehow, you'll start to see this in the external. So I don't know if you've heard the saying that what you don't like about others is what you don't like about yourself. So what that shows you is a really good example of how you will bring, or not bring, I don't like saying that, but you'll see people in the world, like, and this is where, again, everyone has different perceptions, right? So you'll see people in the world that will trigger you or upset you or whatever it does. And then when you notice those things about those people, there's something within that noticing that is telling you something about yourself. And at first it doesn't make sense because it's subconscious, so you have no idea. And I'm going to show you how you can find out what this beautiful, what we call this beautiful tapestry of life is, where we have all these people in our lives, and we trigger the hell out of each other. I'll tell you why, I'll explain it all, everything else. So I'll talk a little bit quickly about the subconscious and how the brain actually works. And I'm not a neuroscientist or anything like that. Literally, this is all, everything I share with you is just information I receive, and whoops, it works. So what we have is we have our conscious mind, which is what you're aware of. And then you have your subconscious mind, which literally is just like a video recording in your head. So it records everything that's happened in your life. Now, what happens when something happens in your life is that, using that perception that you had when you were born, that perception actually creates a meaning around what's happening. So you have what's happening in your life, and then you have that meaning that's created around your incarnation blueprint to give that memory a meaning, and then that'll get stored in your subconscious. Again, it's all part of the parasympathetic system, the nervous system, and also the egoic system, which is there to protect you, and that's why we have it. And the thing is that really the reason why it's subconscious is that we actually don't 100% really need to be knowing what's in there, because how much stuff, it's like a big file in your head. So how much stuff do you really need to consciously remember? So it just stores it away, and in most cases you'll just forget that that's in there. But what I've actually noticed with what's going on with the subconscious is that whatever's going on in there, linked with your perceptions about life and the world, and your, the world and everything else, you will again see in the external. So if there's things that are happening in your life that you don't like, which in most cases that's what we're all here doing, or there's something you're aware of that you just don't want to carry on or whatever, it's actually showing you that there's something within you, within this subconscious or the incarnation blueprint, which is meant to shift into, again, from survival and pulling back and shutting out into the expansion and the growth. And so when you don't know why things are happening, it's actually really interesting, again, to use your thoughts and your feelings to tell you. And they will actually tell you what's going on in your subconscious. So it's actually really cool. I'll give you an example. Is, say, for example, and there's a certain feeling that you get. I don't even know if there's a word for it. Probably is, but I can't really kind of put my finger on it, and I haven't really focused on what it's called. But there's a feeling that you get when someone pisses you off. Pissed off maybe is the word. I've actually learned to identify that that's always the ego. And it's now my absolute go-to. Whenever I have that feeling, I go, right, what is it inside of me that has a story around this, or has a thought around this, or whatever? And it always comes out with this absolutely crazy story, whether it's something from the past, or whether it's something that I've made up to try and cope with the situation, or if it's even something about myself, which once I look at it and am aware of it and I have to call it out, or just the awareness is enough, what then happens, that story then changes, and guess what else then will change? The external environment. Does that make sense? So if you've actually not got those thoughts or feelings or perceptions inside of you, this is how we change our current circumstances. Sounds really easy, but I've been so shocked. It's been instantaneous when you make the decision, when you've got the feeling and you're aware of the thought, and then you just literally see it as, you know, the egoic thought. It's not who you really are. What happens is the situations change like that, because your perception changes. And then what happens is, it's what I call your soul knowing. Your knowing of what is true replaces the perception that you were born with, even the survival mechanism that creates the stories. So again, this is how it helps us to move out of survival and into growth and expansion, when we just recognize that those stories just aren't true. So this is where, if you want to know what's in your subconscious, and if you want to, and your incarnation blueprint, but to change the circumstances, situations, people, and experiences that you're having, you literally look at your reactions and thoughts about those things. And that's all you need to do. So this is where I'll use the example of maybe the experience of never having enough money. I'm sure some people may relate to this. We had a bit of a chat before where Brenda said she actually has something similar to that, but she says that's actually never really the case, like in reality, but there's the thought there, or the awareness. And then that creates the feeling and the experience of not having enough money, even if it's not true. So because you have these thoughts, what actually happens is within you that becomes true and real. And so that's where you will see that, even if it's not true, you'll actually see and experience that in your life. And some people say, you know, if you talk about energies, they say, well, you know, energy matches with energy, and then the experiences that come through match up with what's going on within you. And that is something that is true. But what happens when we have a thought or a belief or a perception about something is our behavior changes around it. So say, for example, you have the belief or the thought or whatever that I never have enough money, or never make enough money or whatever. What happens is your behavior will then change around that. And so you will be what they call self-sabotaging behaviors, creating the experience that you don't have enough money, which is just really strange. So again, at the end of the call, we'll use some experience, like just some of your own experiences that you're aware of, things that I'd really love for you guys to bring up, some really juicy things that you think that you might be stuck with. And let's turn them around and let's see what actually happens in reality. Because also when you turn them around and use that soul wisdom and that knowing of what is actually true, which then replaces the egoic thought or the belief or whatever, then the other one doesn't actually feel true anymore. And then you can't even connect yourself to that story anymore because it just doesn't feel true. So other experiences that you can look at that is very interesting for you to be aware of is maybe confrontations or fears of confrontations, success or lack of success, relationship issues, even feeling alone is also part of a human incarnation to give us the actual experience of being alone, even though there are 7.8 billion people on the planet. Can you see how the perception completely overrides the reality? If you're feeling stuck, not moving ahead, anxious, worried, whatever, you can use all of those to see what's going on within you, creating those thoughts or feelings. And then you just use that process again. So whatever is going on is actually showing you what's deeply held within your subconscious. And I've done this work for over a year now, and in 100% of the cases, we have a direct link between the experience and the thoughts within. So, oh my God, how cool is that? And then again, as I said, once we actually change that thought and feeling through awareness, it changes the reality, and literally instantly, the reality starts to shift and change and pretty much represent what's going on within you, which I think is so cool because we're not looking externally for the answers for anything. We just have to go within ourselves. And that's what it means by going within. So it's really, really fascinating. And again, like when you're starting this journey, it's a bit tough when you're aware of all these thoughts and these feelings that are coming up, and you might go, oh, that's so bad, or that's so wrong, or whatever. That's still the ego. So then you'll start to find that even when you go, well, no, that's just happening. That's just the experience that I'm having, rather than bad, wrong, whatever. And anything that you make good or bad, sorry, even good or bad, right or wrong, is the ego still. It's just happening. It just is. So whatever story you create around or whatever will actually be that. And when you notice, so I'll get you guys to be really focused on when you make things bad or wrong, and then just look at it and go, well, that's just a story and that's just a thought. And then really look at it, it'll actually look different. So like a story I posted yesterday in Facebook where, you know, this little girl was saying that she wasn't very excited about getting her exam results. And so my daughter was excited because she usually does pretty well, and then the other one wasn't excited because she doesn't do very well. So they both have different perceptions about exams and exam results. So I just said to this girl, I said, well, what if you actually just looked at it as not bad, but that there's something to learn from it? Instantly, the perception of getting the results changes. And then the experience of getting the results doesn't actually have to be bad. It just is. So how do we change the situation? So you look at the situation, look at your reaction, and then your thoughts about the situation, and then you can see them and acknowledge them and see some of those thoughts that may be something that happened in the past. And I always say any thoughts from the past or the future are still the ego, making sure that you'll be okay. We just need to focus on now. It's also like the ego going, but what happened then? Like especially the hanging on to stuff, and if you have struggles in letting go of things, it's just the ego going, we can't let go of this, because if we do, we won't be prepared. Again, when you look at it saying, well, I have experienced it and I got through it okay, like I'm fine, I'm still sitting here. Then we can then not be so fearful and needing to carry that past with us. And you find when you have the awareness that whatever thoughts happening, especially in relationships, and I actually urge you guys to use relationships as a trigger for what you hang on to from the past, because it's actually crazy. What happens is, like I've had to do this in my own life, of course, that's how I know. I noticed I've carried a lot of stuff from the past, things that have happened in the past, which actually then made them feel real in the current moment. And I was just going bonkers. And so when I realized that, well, no, it's my choice to have the relationship that I actually want. And so all I need to do is look at every moment as a brand new moment and leave that stuff there. I don't want to bring it with me. I don't want to have the same experiences over and over. And what's happened is then there's different experiences that are happening. So I've just got Renelle actually messaging me. I'm just going to pop her a quick message back and give her the link. So it's really interesting. And if you can maybe even just now, you can look at actual thoughts that you have around things from the past that you might bring with you. And it's really interesting if you can connect to those, because when you do and you realize that they're just from the past, instantly very similar to the awarenesses of it's just a thought, it's just from the past. You then realize, well, isn't that just ridiculous to like take it with you? And it makes sense why we do it. It just makes sense why we do it, because, you know, we think if we keep remembering that that happened, that we will be safe. But what's actually happening is that we're just reliving the same thing over and over and over again. So as I said, you can just simply view it as a thought or a memory and decide that right now, it's just actually, it doesn't need to happen right now. And that's where, again, you take control of your life and decide this is how your life is going to be. And it's really quite, I don't know, it's just really empowering when you know that you can create whatever experience you want to have. It's really, really good. So the ego will feel really uncomfortable, especially when you're letting go of the past, but also once all these stories start to die down and you start to kind of have a really, really clear head and you're starting to be really balanced and focused on the moment and everything else. But just be gentle with it and just understand that it's just trying to protect you, because that's its job. We don't want to, it's like anything, you don't want to literally make anything that's a natural part of your being wrong or bad, because as soon as you do that, you're then playing the game of what the ego wants to create, and then that will be true. And there's a saying that says what you resist persists. So again, if you notice something about something coming up, and you have resistance around it, that's again still the ego. Ego's full of resistance. What'll then happen is it'll stay with you. What you resist persists. It will continue to stay with you. Again, how do I know that I'm in resistance? You'll feel bad. And so I love when I was speaking to you girls earlier that as long as you focus on your thoughts and your feelings, you know exactly what's going on. And to be honest, I've been doing this work now for a year. There are so many layers to us. It's incredible. There is so much within us that you will never run out of things to learn about yourself. It's crazy. So again, at the end, we'll use some examples of things, that might make you feel uncomfortable or, feel like it's hard to let go of, and we'll show you how you do that. So a tricky one is when you say you can't control how people are, but in fact we just can by changing ourselves. So your soul incarnation and blueprint, when you put that together, you actually chose people to come with you. Again, you did incarnate on your own, but then you all of a sudden are with a family, then you're with friends, and you're with co-workers and kids from school, and you've got all these people that we call playing roles in your life. And again, if you can just see everyone in these roles all having different perceptions, not only of themselves but of the world and of you, and we're all playing this beautiful little game with each other, which is then specifically meant and designed to help you to grow. How do you grow? It's actually, and I hope you can actually see this, you grow through awareness of knowing what's exactly going on. So it's really hard when we get triggered or things happen and they feel really scary and horrible or whatever. But we need to look at this bigger picture as it's all happening for a reason. There's something I can get out of this. And in every situation, you will always learn something about yourself. And if you can take that with you in every experience that you're having, and know that every beautiful person in your life is here to help you to learn and to grow about yourself. And that's, if you can use them like that, rather than using the survival mechanisms and becoming smaller, it's actually ticking off the box of your own incarnation, evolutionary purpose. If you want to say, what is my purpose here? This is your purpose, is to actually come back to who you really are, which is growth, expansion, love. So again, first off, what you do when these people, when you notice, and it's actually really beautiful when you're even aware that every person in your life you chose as these beautiful people to play these roles with you. You can even look at the roles that they've played, and sometimes when someone really annoys you, you can go, oh, you're playing your role so well. Good on you. So what you do firstly is just look at what they bring out in you. And it's, as soon as you make it about someone else, you've just lost that learning experience or the opportunity to learn something. So again, notice when you've made it about, and I wrote a story the other day around how it's easy to blame other people. It's so much easier. But what I found when I went into my own blame is that it didn't feel good. Again, the feeling was there, and I'm like, I feel angry that I'm blaming that person. And then when I realized that blame is just the ego. and then realize that I didn't actually have to blame them at all. I could just use them. And I say use them as tools to find out more about yourself, because your reactions will help you to then connect to the thoughts and the feelings that will connect you to what's going on within you. And that's all it is. It's very, very simple. What I've then said, especially with my example around relationships and things like that, is you look at what is then important to you, and what the most important thing is to you is to what you want to have in the future. Like, or what do you want to even have right now? And as soon as you make that decision, that's more important than being right, wrong, them being right or wrong, or anything like that. You realize, well, the most important thing is that, you know, I have what I have, they have what they have, and that we all are, you know, enjoying this incarnation, and that's the most important thing. So when you go into the blame and the rights and the wrongs and everything else, it doesn't feel good, which always shows me that if it doesn't feel good, it's telling me something about what's going on in here, which is where I'm acting from a place of not who I am. I'm not that person. And sometimes, again, you can actually have that awareness when you have thoughts and feelings that are coming up. And you go, like that story I said, when I'm now talking to everyone, where before I kind of put my head down, it's like, I'm not that person. I know that I'm not that person. So it's connecting you to who you really are, not the personas that are created, that you have been using. And the thing is the personas that we create from our past, and who it's created us to who we are today, are actually all coping mechanisms developed by the ego. So most of the ways that we behave and most of the ways that we think have all helped us at some stage in the past, which is why they're so strong and powerful. Even if you don't want them, they are always going to be there if you let them continue to tell the stories about what it thinks is true from the past. And coping mechanisms is another great awareness. If you look at everything that you think and everything that you are doing, and look at whether you're coming from a coping mechanism or whether you're actually doing it from expansion and growth and learning. Because again, we're moving away from just having to cope. A great example was, you know, drowning in the ocean. That was a great coping mechanism to panic, but did it help? No. Great learning. And looking at all the thoughts that developed the panic, like even in life-threatening situations, we can have awareness. And what I found is that you get complete clarity when you're in awareness. But when you're in coping mechanism and trying to deal with stuff, which most of us have been, we've been trying to deal with life, and we'll create coping mechanism after coping mechanism after coping mechanism just to deal with it. You can even say that this is also a coping mechanism, what we're doing. Everything really is. But the essence of what we really want to do is connect us to who we really are, rather than changing who we are because of what's happened or what's happening. Does that make sense? We really, really want to come back to who we really are and behaving from that place, which is just love. Like, we are essentially just love in here. So literally, like, thoughts, feelings, and experiences, I hope that's all helped with showing you how we actually create this external world through what's going on within us. We'll use some examples and we'll go through that now. I'm going to get my notepad out so I can make some notes about what you guys tell me. I hope you've got something juicy to tell me. So who wants to be used as an example for this morning? Just pop your hand up because I can see you. Okay. Oh, gosh, sorry. Why am I burping already? Brenda, hi.
Hello.
That's crazy.
So yeah, when you're talking about the people in your lives, you know, creating things within you or making you aware of what's within you.
Yes.
And I think I've talked to you about this before. I have a sister-in-law who I work with, and I am coming from an awareness that she triggers, or I'm being triggered by her behaviours. And so I've tried to look at it that way, but it hasn't stopped me getting into it, like still getting in it. And the thing now is that when I'm going into work, I've noticed I have this fear, like
Mm-hmm.
just have this fear of going in there and seeing her. And when I do go in and I'm just myself, and it is a pretty good day, but I still, every single time I'm going in, I have that feeling.
Great. So, from what you know, when we have a feeling, what you need to do is you need to look at what is that feeling trying to tell me.
Yeah.
So then you go, what is the thought? So when you think about, because you do actually, it's funny, you do think about the feelings. So when you actually think about, I have this fear, what is the thought that comes into your mind that you think about that creates the fear?
I think the first thing is I'm not safe.
Great. That's a really great survival, that's a real core survival belief that's going on there.
Yeah.
Okay. So very similar to what we've done before is that you look at that as just a thought happening, I'm not safe.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do now when you look at the thought of I'm not safe just happening?
Well, I am safe because, like you said before, I'm here and I'm sitting here and
Yeah.
I'm still going. And
Yeah. I'm going to take it one step further, only because I'm going to take it one more step further and say, okay, so what is it saying then about you not being safe? Where are you not safe?
showing up as me.
Wow, deeper than you thought. You thought it was about her.
I know.
Great. Look at the awareness
Yeah.
of the thought of showing up as me. That's a tricky one, isn't it?
Yep.
So the ego's created a...
That is.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to write that down again as well, because it's again a thought. I don't know what that is. So you can actually see it's a very valid point that the ego is actually showing you, is that you don't know who you are. So how can you show up as that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of is scared. Like, it's like, well, how do we know how to turn up if we don't even know who we are? Like, that is actually very scary to the ego.
Yes.
Because how does it know for you to show up?
Yes.
Have a look at the thought happening that I don't know who I am.
I'm not getting anything.
And how does that feel?
Okay.
Yes. So this is what I call a reset, where when you're shifting a belief or a perception about anything, you will get a nothing. And usually the nothings will actually trigger more thoughts or feelings about being nothing. But it's actually, you have to kind of, sometimes if it's something that's big like that, you have to go back to being nothing to create something new.
Okay.
Yeah. And if I can just share that when we do that and we go into the nothing, the ego hates it.
Right.
It absolutely hates it, because it's when you're in the nothing and there's nothing there, that's not going to help you to survive.
Yeah.
So getting nothing and being in nothing, I don't know if you can see or feel it, but I can. It's like it's trying to grab onto something, but there's just nothing.
Mm.
That means that you're starting to create what you actually want rather than what you don't want. But it's actually really great to know that there has been stories and fears created just around the thought that you don't know who you are.
Yeah.
But can you feel somewhere within you kind of does know?
Yes. Yes.
Even though you didn't know a second ago.
Yeah.
Now, even you not going into what that is awesome, because usually the ego will go, well, let's work out who that is, even though we have a knowing. of who we are, the ego likes to put labels on it, what it looks like, wants to identify it, all that sort of thing, and you've not done that. So what that means is, guess what? You can show up however you want to show up at each moment, and that's you, with no stories. It's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
But I do want to use the example of the fact that if we have stories that do pop up, we just need to keep looking at them, because it's just the ego really trying to grab onto, the ego doesn't like not knowing. And again, if you guys get triggered around not knowing, just acknowledge that there's a thought that you don't know. A lot of the questions that come up in our life is just the ego. We know actually everything when you allow the ego to kind of sit in its little box and do its job when it's meant to come up, and you just come back to what you know about yourself, and you just acknowledge that the ego is creating the stories, and you come back to just you. Like, so you've just come back to you now, even though you don't know anything, you actually have a feeling that you do.
Yes.
Crazy, right? The thing is, if you have the awareness and the thought now, which is actually still a thought that I do know everything, what do you think your future is going to be like? Knowing everything. And if you need any information, you just have to be in this. And what happens, because we have a soul, right? We all have a soul. Our soul has wisdom. So when you're this and you're nothing, what actually happens is that if you need to know the answer to anything, it'll just pop into your head, because your soul knows a lot. It has more access to information than you do.
Yes.
Your other conscious side, which is your human side. So how does that feel? Now, even now, what I want you to do is, then it's really good to do this when you've done this work, is you go back to thinking about your sister-in-law and going to work, and what happens then?
Yeah, I'm not feeling that fear. Wow. Wow. Cool.
Very cool. But, and I've just got a message, just keep being aware.
Yes.
Because there may be some other, like, I'm still learning about my own really, really, really deep thoughts. And I had an awareness yesterday that there's some other stories going on in there, but that are really hiding.
Okay.
I can feel them.
Yeah.
But I don't know what they are yet.
Yeah.
But I'm so excited to find out.
That's the way to look at it, I guess, being excited about it and not fearful about it.
Oh no, I think you got to do a lot of it though to realize it's just like it's like realization after realization after realization every day. It's, after a while, it's so fun. Even again, drowning, like, I haven't gone out of that going, that was horrible. It was scary, hard, but there's still so much awareness out of it. And how, again, because I then relate it back to how we're moving forward, is that we can move forward and deal with situations not from panic, but from real clear and be able to act from that. I think we've got a better chance of survival when we're clear and can look at what we can do. That's what I noticed. You can't see what you can do when you're in panic. The thoughts create the panic, which then create the I don't know what to do. Again, it's just all a big story. Because when you don't have any of it happening, you're totally clear.
Yeah.
And you have a knowing, your soul will say, do this. Or your awareness will say, look at that. And then you just do it without the panic. To me, that's kind of a bit easier than panicking. So nothing's actually bad. Everything's really cool. And to be honest, it's actually so much fun to learn about things that are deep. Like when I had the awareness yesterday, I could kind of hear that there was a story going on. It's a constant story in the background, but I haven't actually connected to it yet. So I'm so excited to see what it is. Because when you find out what that story is, you'll realize that you've actually had it for your whole life. And then you'll actually notice how it's created the experiences that you've created and had, which then makes 100% sense. It just makes so much sense.
Yep.
Very cool. So thank you. That was a really great one to play with. So thank you for that. I'm going to do another burp. Okay, thanks, darling. Anyone else want to? Renelle said very interesting, same belief as Brenda. Actually, Brenda, can I just use you for one more before we go into another example? Is you want to talk about money?
Yes, yes.
So tell me just quickly, because that's again a universal thing. Everyone at some stage has something around money. So
when I look back on my life, money's not been something that I found I really struggled with. I've tended to have always been able to get what I need, and I certainly surrounded by everything you could possibly want or need. And I acknowledge that, and I'm grateful for that. And I guess I feel secure when I know I've got money in accounts that I don't have to use. And at the moment, I guess just because I'm earning less than I used to, I'm starting to use that, and I'm not feeling, it's making me feel really, really unsafe.
And again, another unsafe.
About, I don't have that backup for if something happens. What if something happens and I don't have the money for it? I think that's the driver behind it.
Now, what I've just done is I've tried to grab as many of the thoughts that you've just spilled out.
Sorry, that's probably a lot.
No, it's perfect because I need them. This is where sometimes it's really cool to write down the thoughts that you're having, but a lot of the times we don't know the thoughts that we're having, so we just blah, 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 blah. So you should see, so I've got pages and pages of notes from clients who, like, I'm just writing their thoughts as they're telling me. I should use the shorthand I learned at school.
I never learnt shorthand.
I did, crazily enough. Okay, so, and I didn't get all of them because I didn't really connect to the fact that that's what I was doing until I started doing it, and then realized I didn't get all of them. But they'll still come up, which is good. So looking at the awareness of the thoughts that, that I'm not going to be safe if I don't have that much backup, that I feel like that there may also be a level of maybe beating yourself up in even using it.
Yes, definitely.
There's also, I don't know if I'll be okay if something goes wrong.
Yes.
Okay, I want you to look at there's a lot of thoughts. So take them all out and just go, okay, they're just all thoughts about safety. And we'll put them in a little safety bucket of thoughts about safety. There is something else though. I am very lucky I get access to everyone's subconscious, so don't you worry about that. What else is in there? It's, I can see it running away. It's actually not wanting us to find it, but I'm pretty clever. Okay, so there's an actual connection to if I'm, whether you're not safe or whether it's again using the money or whatever story it's creating, it's all coming back to how you see yourself, and it's relating all back to that.
Yes.
Which now that's the second time we've seen that, you'll probably find that that's going to be one of the major reasons for most of your thoughts.
Right.
Is that I don't know. So what it's actually saying, that if I use this money and I can't survive and I'm not okay, what does that mean about me? Because what's actually happening is the ego's just going, I don't know if I can deal with the label that I'm going to put on myself as to who I am or what anyone else will put on me. Can you feel how that's true?
Yeah, definitely, yes.
Really strange. So when you actually connect and look at that, like we really need, it's actually quite a big chunky one, this one. So I can feel it. It's like right in here. So you got to grab that because it's like a big block of thought. And I want you to take it out and look at it and go, I don't know if I'll be okay without this thought of, I don't know I won't like the thoughts that I'll put onto the name of who I am. Like, I won't like the meaning of who I am if I do this. Like, again, looking at that, what do you think about that? It's actually a fear of what you'll actually call yourself.
Yeah.
Weird, right?
Yeah.
It's so weird. I've never seen it before, actually. It's very interesting, a fear of what you will call yourself if this happens, or if you do it. So it's actually not a fear of being unsafe. It's actually a fear of the label that you give yourself.
Right, yeah.
Crazy. Looking at that. And I like saying, instead of saying, what do you think about that? What do you know about that? Because it's the knowing we're tapping into.
At the end of the day, after all the things that have come into my awareness through talking to people like you and just reading stuff, is that we are all okay.
And in actual fact, when you have that as the basis of every awareness that we are okay, what do you think is going to happen in your life?
That it's all going to be fine, and it's all going to work.
Yes. Now, we do get triggered around death. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, because that's the ego's biggest failure, which is also the ego's thought. That if we die, it has failed its job from keeping us alive.
Right.
So we have the biggest fear around that. We still need to override it and know we will be okay, even if that happens. Because number one, it's going to happen to everyone.
Yep. And
number two, what's number two? Come on. We need to know that, number one, it's actually going to be something that happens to everyone. And also, it's actually really interesting. I'm not getting the number two.
Is it that we don't really die? We just move.
That's it. Thank you for being my translator. We actually, again, it depends on the belief and the perception that everyone has. Whatever the belief and perception is about that will be true. Only from what my own experiences are that we don't die, we transition into another experience that we're having. And we still have our consciousness. We are aware of ourselves. That's really interesting when you look at people who have gone to the other side and had death experiences, things like that. They have an awareness of self, but they also have an awareness of themselves the same as everyone else, which is very different to when we're here. So I'm really, like, I'm doing a lot of work. I'm doing a 12-month mastermind at the moment where we're exploring the deeper consciousness of consciousness. And so it's really interesting to see how we can be both when we're not here. When we're here, we have the awareness of this. When you connect to the awareness of that, and then also the awareness that you're also the same energy as the universe and the plants and the people and everything else. That's a very different comprehension to what we're experiencing here, and we just can't understand it because that's not what we physically or consciously are aware of. So what we think and what we believe when we die is that that's the end.
Yeah.
And again, we will be triggered by the ego because it's it thinks that it's, that it is the end, and it's, it's failed its job in keeping us alive. But there is a level of connecting to, the truth that goes on within you, going into the knowing of what is actually true. And again, whatever feels right will be the thing that is your truth. Like, again, I don't want to put my own on everyone else. I've talked about my experiences, but everyone has their own experiences, which are, again, a part of their learning and growth. So there is no right or wrong way to do it. So, but even that, like, and I've constantly said to myself when I've had a thought of, oh, but what if that happens? I will always be okay. I will always be okay regardless. Even if death occurs, I will be okay. And that's a hard one for the ego to deal with. Renelle said exactly, that's what I got, that my death would be a failure. Yeah. Interesting. I've actually never seen that before until right now. Because, of course, again, I'm using you guys to be able to receive more information around this stuff. So I've never seen that that's actually why we're triggered so much by death, is because the ego sees it as failure and the end. So I've not seen that before. So it's very interesting that that's what's come through today. And again, I'm being told we'll get more and more and more about it, like just by having these conversations. We'll get more and more insights around what is true and why these thoughts are happening. So definitely looking at, so your money story, Brenda, wasn't actually about money at all.
Yeah.
It was actually, and I think it was really interesting. The thing that I noticed is that when we noticed that it was the fear of the label that you would give yourself from what you do, it felt really true and real, and it felt kind of a bit stuck at the beginning. But then as we really noticed it as just the thought, it's like, well, you can think anything about yourself.
Yeah.
Why did the ego think that you would just think one thing? Like, you can have a choice of what you think of yourself. And that, again, lightened it up and made it feel a lot better. And then just see how you go now. You probably won't feel as bad.
That sounds good.
Yeah. Well, again, share with us, because it'd be good to know. So
yes. No, thank you, Kim.
Yeah, no worries. That was fun. Okay, anyone else want to put their hand up? Marianne, anything for you? I'll unmute you. Any fun awareness that you want to share?
Yeah, the fact that I always feel I've got to be in control.
Oh yeah, that's definitely the ego wanting to make sure that you're okay.
Yeah.
So if you can, is that just the thought that I always have to be in control?
Yeah, I think so. Because this is all new to me.
Definitely new to you. Like, you have not worked with me.
No.
So these guys have worked with me for a while. You have never done this work or any kind of work. No. So you're doing really well.
I'm a total novice.
No, you're actually doing awesome.
Well, a lot of things have come to me this morning as to how much of my old life that I still have hanging over me.
Oh, yeah.
That I think about, that being in control all the time and having to have control about everything, and it's exhausting. I'm finding it's just exhausting.
Yeah.
And I realistically don't. I like being in control to a degree, but I'm learning that I want to slow down. I want to change that.
And you're just learning that the need to be in control is exhausting. So you've got two things going on that we can look at, which is going to be really cool. You've got the past stuff, which is beautiful that you've brought that up. So that's really, really cool that you've got the awareness of the past stuff. And then you've also got I'm going to put the need to be in control. So these are, it might sound like that these are really big things, but in actual fact, well, I'm not going to say anything. I'll let you experience it. So it won't be as hard as you thought it would be. So if you look at the awareness, now you've had the awareness is everything. And you can see how powerful, even like awareness is just so good. So if you have the awareness that you have a lot of stuff from the past that's kind of following you, I want you to look at the fact that that's actually what's happening, and tell me what you think about or what you feel about that when you notice that the past is kind of coming with you all the time.
That I know it doesn't have to be there. I don't need it.
Good. Yeah. So you can actually make a decision just to be in now and say that can stay there. And I can just be here. And being in the now is the best way to counteract the egoic reactions. Being in the now, you can't be anything other than just this now. You can't create any stories. You can't carry on the past, you can't look into the future, you can't do anything. So actually the perfect situation is being in the now. And what happens is that when we're in the now with this clean slate, we start to create what we want.
Yeah.
Rather than carrying the past. So just the awareness, and just, I think if you could just be aware if there's any thoughts of the past and go, oh yeah, that's really interesting. That's just a thought of the past. Just having the awareness is awesome, because before you would have the thought and think that you need to have it now. When you have the awareness that the thought is actually just showing you something that happened in the past, you've now got a knowing that that doesn't really need to belong here. And you watch, you'll actually notice, because once you have, this is what the shift in consciousness is that once you have a knowing of something, you can't ever unknow it. If that makes sense. So, which you're actually doing really well, because sometimes I speak in riddles and rhymes and it's like, you're still picking it up, which is great. So that's the past thing, is just be aware of any past thoughts and then just noticing them. And that's all you need to do. And all of a sudden you'll just go past. It won't go, oh, we need to remember that, which it would have done before. So that's good. The other thing I'm getting for you is to take nice deep breaths when you have awarenesses. Okay, so have an awareness, take a couple of deep breaths. And when you're looking at the awareness and taking a couple of deep breaths, it will probably move on by itself. Yeah. So I feel like the other thing that's going on underneath is the beating yourself up. Can you have an awareness of that? The beating yourself up is also just the ego saying, you need to be in high alert all the time. Come on now, get it sorted. Again, from what I've learned from drowning, I'm better off just being here, thanks, rather than in high alert all the time. It doesn't work. So I even feel like now that you have the awareness that the beating yourself up was just simply so you can be on high alert all the time, can you feel that that doesn't really need to be required anymore?
Exactly.
See?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, tick. Now, the need to be in control, I think, was linked to, it's very similar to Brenda's, where it's linked to how we think about ourselves. Sorry, just a bit of an uncomfortable moment just then. Someone's just deciding to stand right next to me. Can you just go? Thanks. So I need to focus. So with the need to be in control, it actually was more about the whole, you need to be in alert to make sure you're okay. So if you look at the awareness that you need to be in control, what do you know now when you look at that?
I need to be there. I don't need to be in control all the time. I can just relax and be me.
You're an amazing student. Like, for someone who's just started doing this work, you are amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing. It's exactly right. Exactly right. That's all you need to do. But now, again, the proof's in the pudding. You've got to now live it.
Yeah.
That's the practice. So I love that our own lives are our own case studies. And we're our own students of ourselves. And this is the self-mastery. Fun. And it's so much fun. I don't know if you guys can feel it, but it's just so cool to know stuff about yourself. Yeah. Take a couple of deep breaths now. You do need to do a lot more deep breathing, which is really cool. It's all good. You'll start to feel like you'll just need to take deep breaths. And just when you have that feeling, just do it. But definitely after an awareness, which is something we can all do. We all can take lots more deep breathing. When you have an awareness of something, take a couple of deep breaths and you just watch it just disappear. So you're doing awesome with thoughts and feelings and being aware of them. You've been aware of some 3 massive things that you've been carrying, which is the past, beating yourself up and needing to be in control. To be honest, they are pretty much the big 3 of the ego's job. Which you've had awarenesses of. So just again, go through the day. We'll catch up again tomorrow, which is so good, again, to share more stories about what we've experienced the day before, because so much happens in such a short time when you do this work. Time starts to slow down when you're in awareness. Time starts to things start to look clearer. You start to see things a little bit differently, but definitely the experiences you have and your behaviors start to really change. And it's fun, but they don't feel like it's hard or anything. It's just an awareness. Oh, I wouldn't normally do that. Or I would normally do something different. And it just is. So again, you're going down the rabbit hole of awarenesses of self. It's a beautiful journey. Okay, so I'm going to unmute everyone. Any questions? Anything? I mean, you just need to be and just see what happens. I just love this. You guys are awesome. So yeah, have fun with it. I'll see you tomorrow. This also goes into the group and into YouTube, so you can make comments or you can share or whatever, what things come up for you. But definitely have a notepad with you if you want to write down some really cool things and awarenesses of yourself, because it's just fun to learn about yourself. So it's really good. Oh, you guys are awesome. Well done. We've got more to cover tomorrow, so go deeper again, which you'd never think you can, but it's just endless from what I've learned. So there's so much we can learn about ourselves and the world. Thank you, Renelle, for being here. And Marianne and Brenda, thank you guys. And hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow. You can play tomorrow. Take care and have fun with your new toy. Bye, guys. Love you. Bye.